I want to just acknowledge that we understand that TEA has, as of the last couple of days, reversed their position on what we're calling the crew model. Um, so, as we understand it in the last couple of days, one of the main points of our petition has already been met, which is that we are not going to be forced to go back to a pre-COVID traditional model for anyone and everyone who wants it, which functionally could have led to switching classes in hallways, and which would be unsafe for students and teachers. So I just want to actually just acknowledge that and say thank you to TEA for making that change. And we're still holding this event because we have 20 points that need to be addressed. And in addition to that, we need a commitment from TEA to stick with this and maintain, continue to give districts the local control they need to be creative and flexible and meet the needs of students, teachers, parents, et cetera. Also want to acknowledge that there has been, and a big reason to have this conference is that there has been a narrative in the public eye that, to some extent that it's somehow teachers versus parents. That's been a growing narrative that we have to choose between protecting teachers and protecting students, prioritizing students. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the vast majority of parents and teachers and professionals and community members are concerned for the health and safety and the educational satisfaction of everyone. And it is possible to meet that. We just need the flexibility, the creativity, and the collaboration to get that done.
This has been incredibly stressful. I know it has been for a lot of us. Um, I am terrified about going back next week, about having all of our students on campus, or I know it's not going to be every student, but still opening up the doors to more students, more staff. Um, Already since October 5th, we've had a lot of issues that make me concerned, or even more concerned, with instances of staff members being able to enter the campus without having gotten screened first, or students and staff being observed on campus without their masks. Already we've seen students on campus who are observably sick or have been sent to the nurse and later been found to be sick. The screening process by which we enter campus involves the thermometer, test to your forehead, and it regularly shows everyone's temperature to be 2, 3, 4 degrees lower than what it should be. I'm getting readings of like 94, 95 degrees, and being told, oh, that's okay. It's okay. Nothing's wrong with the thermometer, even though it's regularly showing a lower temperature. All of this, just makes me very concerned about our ability to ensure student and staff safety for next week, especially with the whole going back with allowing full transitions. We were offered two options for how transitions would take place on our campus. One that allowed for lots of transitions, one that had very few. And during these discussions, I had asked if our district knew which type of transition models were used in other school districts like Houston, for example, where they had to shut down those 16 schools because of an increase in COVID cases. Because if we knew what model they had, let's just not use that model. Let's cross that one out. But it was told that here in AISD, middle schools are given the freedom to choose however they want to reopen, which is just boggles my mind that staff members, not health professionals, not, I don't know, data analysts, not people who have a professional background in how to handle something like this. Teachers, staff are designing what next week will look like. And it's just like the simple question of, can we just not do what Houston did, and how we don't even know what they did is frightening to me. I want to make sure that next week that if we have to reopen, that we're doing it in the safest way possible. And so far, the district has not demonstrated that they know what that means, or to be honest, they even, I hate to say this because it sounds so callous, but it feels like we're reopening because the state wants us to, not because we, as a body think it's the safest thing to do. Where every time people, raise concerns, it's, oh well, my principal said, or my the superintendent said, or TAA said, or the governor said. Everyone keeps blaming, upwards when, you know, why aren't we just fixated and focused on the health and safety of our students and staff?
I'll send my son to school when COVID-19 numbers are down. I don't know why we're talking about sending our babies to school when our numbers are going up. And some parts of Texas, it gives us the need to keep what we need to keep teaching our kids at school. My child will not be a test while you figure out whether or not it is safe enough to get teachers the full support emotionally and that they need, and with the materials that they need.
One of the things that Dr. Elizalde and the school board made very clear at the reopening on October 5th was that parents in AISD would have a choice on whether or not to send their kids back into a building. They could remain virtual all year if they chose. Except the biggest issue about this is that the parents in AISD that become disenfranchised from that voice are our teachers. If you're a teacher and you have a kid, you don't get the same choice. You're going to have to come back to campus. So unless you have a medical accommodation. And hearing Aubrey's testimony earlier, I completely concur. I don't want my children to be part of this experiment of what, it's going to be like. We don't have enough data to really truly feel comfortable sending our young children into buildings that have not really had, been open to deal with the protocols and all of the safety measures that we've had to take. I think the schools are doing everything we can in person right now on campus to keep everybody safe. But even on my campus right now, we've had already 2 confirmed cases in the past 2 weeks. And we only have about 50 kids on campus and maybe 30 faculty members. So we're talking about like less than 100 people on campus, and we've already had multiple confirmed cases. And so it's just, when we start inviting and knowing that we're going to be bringing more people back onto campus, man, we just know that we're kind of bracing ourselves for impact. And while we see the trends continuing to tick up, I've had the privilege of serving on the superintendent's teacher focus group over the past few weeks. And that has been insightful to hear other teacher testimony, as well as hearing directly from Dr. Elizalde on a weekly basis. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about any folks that maybe have questions about what maybe some of the purpose and direction that we've been able to go in with that focus group. But I feel like the biggest outlet for me and source of inspiration and kind of idea think tank has been this group. And the group that has kind of been on the side, the community members that have been trying to advocate for a smarter plan. And I'm very thankful to be able to be involved with that. So the biggest problem that this creates is it's not just one teacher back on campus now. It's not just one kid in one school. I now have 2 kids in 2 different buildings and both parents in 2 different buildings. So now we have 4 sites that are within our one household. And so that's been our biggest kind of thing to grapple with, is trying to figure out how to remain safe, knowing that we have an exponentially higher risk of exposure. And this is a problem in our teacher community right now. We've already lost several, incredible educators that our kids deserve to have, and our kids are fortunate to have. We've lost them due to them having to make these same choices for their family, what fits best for them. And unfortunately, for a lot of them, these are heart-wrenching choices for them. It's like it's like leaving a kid, leaving teaching for these educators that are really truly life invested. And it's really sad for the students that will not have the opportunity to continue to learn from them, because these are educators that are making huge impacts in their lives.
I asked our principal what I could do, and she told me ask HR, and then I asked HR, and then I was just passed around HR, and then I asked to meet with the superintendent twice and was denied. And I just wanted to ask a simple question: why are our teachers required to go back on campus if there's not really a need for them to be there, if there are teachers sitting in empty classrooms? I feel like we're losing good teachers for really no reason at all. And there's a large population of high school teachers, at least, that I've come in contact with and spoken to, that are really at risk of like having to leave their profession. And those are some of the best high school teachers. And as a high school student, if we don't have good teachers, there's not going to be any high school students showing up for classes or going to school in the first place. So that's what I'm here to say as a student. And as a student perspective, that's a really big student concern, is that we love our teachers and we want them to get the ability to stay safe if they need to, and for AISD to be way more accommodating than they currently are being. Because if not, we will lose so many great educators. That is all.
I asked the superintendent's designees, the superintendent's group that was working with us, what is your number one priority? What is the most important thing you want to address right now in this pandemic? Both individuals said safety, number one, and education or equity, number two. And to keep myself from laughing at those comments, as I asked them, can you then show me or explain to me how bringing 100 teachers back and school employees back for 10 students, as they did at LASA, is about safety or education? And I waited for an answer. There was not. Well, there was one. Let me tell you what the answer to that, because I've asked that question numerous times to district admin. They said, Ken, it is an expectation that teachers return to campus. That's it, an expectation. It's not about safety, it's not about education, it's about compliance. The district is espousing the state's approach to education, and it's comply, comply, comply. By ignoring the safety and well-being of students, teachers, school employees, and their families. When we see that COVID is negatively impacting the Black and Latinx communities disproportionately, within the Latinx community, it's devastating. As the district continues to be a one-size-fits-all and force everybody to come back to school, we can do nothing, and they understand that it's impacting our communities of color in a much more profound way. We can only say that their demand to return to school is nothing other than racist. It is just fitting in to a white supremacist paradigm of top down. You've got to follow our instructions. It is very important that if the district says that safety is number one, that we slow this down. The fact of the matter is they've done very little to slow this down and everything to do to ramp it up and to move faster. A recent communication went out to from AISD suggesting that Education Austin was not moving forward and that we were sending misinformation. The district must stop listening to privileged groups that don't deserve any more from this district than they've already gotten from this community and this system and the privilege that they have. It is time that this district show its courage to stand up to TEA. I'm looking for one district in this state to stand up to Mike Morath and TEA. I'm looking for one district to say, you can't take our money. TEA took $17 million from us, $17 million away from AISD. Yet AISD did nothing to pitch a fit about that. They just let it happen. If they're going to let up and give away and let the state steal $17 million from us, they're not going to stand up for anybody, because the bottom line is our money. And if they're not going to stand up for their bottom line, they're not going to stand up for people.
TEA has done a one-size-fits-all guidance for all districts without really considering, like in funding, they consider the size and location of the district, small to mid, rural. It is impossible to issue paternalistic one-size-fits-all guidance for a district with 1,200 separate school districts. Those 1,200 districts are vastly different in their transmission rates, in their demographics, and in their needs. So to Ken's point, this tug of war between the governor, the TEA, and school districts is really a false illusion of local control. It really is. You have flexibility within what we tell you to do. So that was evidenced to me by the revocation of the health authorities to make decisions around school opening and closings and giving it back to the governor. There is a callousness in that, and I appreciate Ken's word around that. There's also a callousness in overriding state decisions around acceptable risk. And I think that that's what taps into fears, right? Someone else is mandating to you what is an acceptable risk as a teacher, as a parent, as a student, as
30 seconds.
any employee. And that cannot be mandated. That is personal and subjective and needs to be made on as a local front as humanly possible. To tie in my decisions to special education and a population of students who are rarely heard from, you know, IDEA, which is the federal law that governs special education, was not waived. I can only speak to my experience with my student in that AISD says they prioritize students receiving special education, but to date, and I'm a parent who pays close attention, I have not seen specific plans. The plan is kick the can to teachers. Teachers who, number one, we don't have enough of. Number two, the expectations on their workload is triple that of other providers. And number three, that we don't have a system in place to prioritize these students. So it's difficult to make a prioritization if there is no vehicle for prioritization. The same is true for students who are economically disadvantaged, Black, Latino, Indigenous, and all other marginalized groups. You cannot prioritize them unless you create a vehicle for prioritization. That is not possible with state guidance that doesn't consider the unique needs of those communities.
My name is Bianca San Miguel. I'm a teacher in AISD. I'm also a parent of 2 children in a neighboring district, and I am also a parent in mourning. My daughter passed away last year, September 20th. And so I feel like I can bring a perspective that is not often heard in this situation. There's lots of hypotheticals about losing a child, what you would feel like, what you would do. And I'm here to voice what that reality looks like. This is the opportunity to remember that nothing is normal right now. Nothing's going to be normal for a long time. And this is the opportunity we have to change what our normal is, to be more equitable for people. Specific campuses are doing different things. Not every AISD teacher is forced to have their sick and personal days removed when they are working from home, regardless of the situation, accommodation or not. And I also wanted to speak to, as a teacher, education in person is absolutely much better than online. For me as a student, for my children as students, absolutely much better. But you know what else is a lot better than that? Waking up to your babies, making sure that they're still here. That's better. And I can speak to that personally because I wish my baby was here. Today's Halloween, one of her favorite holidays, and tomorrow is Dia de los Muertos. And last year I couldn't bring myself to celebrate because it was too soon. But this year she gets to be part of the Mexicartes ofrenda display. And she loved going to that Viva la Vida parade. It was one of our favorite traditions ever since it came to Austin. I just want to appeal to every administrator, every district leader, TEA. You have an opportunity to prevent this kind of pain in just a marginal opportunity, just a small percentage of a chance that you can prevent this from happening to a family, and you're refusing to. You're going for compliance over safety and health. So I have 3 things to sum up. A safe work environment is not an accommodation, it's a right. I will not be bullied into putting my children in an unsafe situation or abandoning my students. And 3, history doesn't give you a pass when you say, I was just doing my job and I was following orders. Remember when segregation was a guideline? Remember that, TEA, because I remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. We're going to take just a moment of silence to be with what you said and for your daughter.
This press conference is the perfect example of how we have the opportunity to do things differently, how adapting to needs is vital and showing up with heart and humanity is vital. We have the opportunity to do things differently and to think outside the box and dismantle the systems that prevent us from organizing and working together and from being heart-centered and focusing. And we can focus on truly rebuilding our school system for our communities and our kids. And we're all familiar with the phrasing of absolution, right? So we're building the plane while we're flying it. One of my favorites. We have to pivot and be nimble. My most favorite or least favorite is our hands are tied. So to TEA and to our state, in particular our government here, you have the power to break those ties. You have the power to empower entire communities of human beings with the ability to put into place the measures that will get our schools to a place of safety and safely educating our children. I want to hold on to what Bianca said and that feeling, because that feeling, that gut-wrenching feeling that we feel as parents, as mothers, when we hear those stories, you can't, if you have a child or empathy, able to access that empathy, you can tap into that space and feel those feelings. And those are the things that we need to hold on to in this fight. We need to continue to hold that feeling, because that's what's going to unite us and keep us here and keep us energized. Bianca, thank you. And I'm so sorry. But thank you for showing up in these spaces and making us feel those feelings, because that is what unites us around what matters.
Teachers that show up every day for their kids and put on their brave face, but they go home and they bawl their eyes out. You know, there are a lot of different places that I come from, but when I quit, I decided to become an advocate, and that's my number one role at this point. And all of these stories, this is what I'm fighting for. And while I hesitate to make this about politics, I will say that your voice and your vote matters. That will ultimately be how we change this system, is we have to put people in power who share our values and who will make choices, the necessary hard choices, and lead from a place that speaks to humankind and decency.
As a mom of a premature baby, my son has spent enough time fighting for his life. And he shouldn't have to sacrifice his life or put himself at risk or others at risk to get an education, to get an equitable education. And TA just needs to stop playing these games with people's lives. It's not okay.
How is it that parents cannot be involved in the education of their children, make decisions for them, life-changing decisions? We are all being forced into a single mandate of show up or else your grades are going to be suffering, your this is going to be suffering, your funding is going to be suffering. Wait, are we living in an autocracy? This is the democracy. People have a choice, a vote, right? And seems like, that ability is not there. People talked earlier about, getting bullied, and that's what this entire system seems like. We as parents are getting bullied, as teachers getting bullied into following someone else making this decision. There are great examples in the past. Change has happened. This is an opportune moment for all of us, parents, teachers, to come together and protest. There is a non-cooperation movement that Gandhi did to get freedom for India. And then there was Mandela who did that. And then there was MLK who did that for the civil rights movement. We all have an opportunity today to protest. We all have an opportunity to non-cooperate. If nobody shows up indefinitely, nobody shows up indefinitely, not one day protest, that doesn't get us anything. So if we truly want freedom, truly want a democracy, truly want people's voices to be heard, children's voices to be heard, what we need to do is indefinitely have a non-corporate movement until the powers that be are changed and we have a seat at the table for the health, wealth of the children and the teachers and the parents and everyone.
The opportunity to educate our students is secondary to the opportunity to protect their lives, right? Then that translates up to the staff, faculty, and administration. So to take the opportunity to put an economic measure on this and say, hey, we've been told X, we won't receive X if X doesn't happen, it's very disappointing. It's very disturbing for our kids to be made a commodity in that way. This is not going away before the end of 2022. They need to look at the modeling. Even if we get a vaccine, it's not going away. It's not going away. So stop making our students and families commodities. Stop making our education professionals commodities to be bartered with the bureaucracies that are making decisions about money.
I am a community member. I am a spouse of a teacher. I am a former AISD employee, and I am not calm. I am mad. This is ridiculous. We have teachers who have decades of experience that are quitting, resigning, retiring. We have a superintendent who is the newest member of the AISD family, dictating what the community is being subjected to. I did some initial math prior to COVID. It was on AISD's website that we have 10,000 staff and 80,000 students combined. That is 90,000 people within Austin. If you add one person, one per household for those employees and kids, that is 180,000 people that are being directly affected by this woman. That is 18% of Austin population. We have 18% roughly of the city that is directly affected by one woman's decision. I understand that we also need to take this to TEA and the governor. What I do not understand is the newest member to our family, and I call it a family because we are all working together. We are mandating that children take science, and we are ignoring it. We encourage our children to become thinkers and to stand up for themselves and their community, and we are telling teachers not to. We celebrate Labor Day, an entire day based off of safe working environments, and we are not providing that to our students. Our children are living in multi-generational homes, and we are ignoring the fact that these are the exact kids who need to be protected. Many of those students do not have insurance, and so we are then putting them at a greater risk.
In my organizer capacity, I truly represent the community. And we have community members who are forced to make these decisions because they don't have the privileges that maybe some of us do. So I've been a part of this struggle of two different conversations of people who are at a level of making these decisions to enter school. And then I have people who are living in a car. And thinking about going to school is nowhere on their radar. Stabilizing their families. Today I had a mom who said, I can probably come and share with you today, Cynthia. And then she found out 3 days ago that for some reason, her husband did not renew their lease. And so instead of being here this morning, she's having to pack and move today with 3 daughters in the public school system. Do you think she's wondering about school next week? I have another mom named Jeanette in 78745 who's also in public school. She was stressed out about paying her rent. The only place that she had to go to was Georgetown. Her job is downtown and she's having to commute. 2 weeks ago, she called me and told me she ran out of gas at St. John's in 35. I had to go help this mother of one student in AISD who's been displaced during a pandemic, push her car up St. John's Road. I handed her $20 in her hand just so she could get home. She's not wondering about our schools, y'all. She's wondering about just making it through this. So although I have this parental side of me that's balancing, like we should not be risking the mortality of our kids, I also have to be representative of our community who is struggling to make those decisions. But I feel confident because we're all here. There are 50 people here. There were 80 people here this morning to have this conversation. So I hope that we continue to elevate those voices. Everybody who's representing whatever community that you're representing, do it authentically because you are. And I heard it today in everybody's voices. I heard everybody's lived experience, and coming together in unity, that's the bag. And I hope that we can stay together during this work and keep working beyond the conflict, right? Hanging in there, even when we hear the no's or my hands are tied in this situation, because we know they're really not. And we know that right now is that time to make the change. So please keep in mind that we do have a population of people who are ready to make these decisions, but we also have a population of people who are just trying to make money. Marisol, a mama in North Austin, lives off of Cameron Road, 3 daughters in the public school system. She's making tortillas, y'all, just to make a few bucks. That's what she's doing. She reached out to me and she's wondering if I can support her with school uniforms. Do you get what I'm saying? The economic and poverty threshold and, you know, wanting your kids to be integrated and socially acceptable in their school uniforms, right? We don't want our kids to show up not feeling like they fit in. So the emotional impacts of reintegration, the emotional trauma of COVID, it's a lot for everybody. So again, I'm just going to go back to humanity. And the reason why we're really here is to bring humanity back into the school system and strengthen that.
For GABA, you know, as a coalition of residents building community power to address inequity, historical inequity, you know, today is a powerful and challenging day. You know, this time, families, workers, leaders are navigating tremendous stress and under tremendous pressure during this pandemic, as it's already been told in the stories and testimonies that have been shared thus far. You know, we are here to seek a response from our district, from TEA, for addressing the points in this petition. But it's also about recognizing where health and wellness and the experts and the data that we have are not leading the way at this time. And we want to speak to the pace of change and the strain and the confusion that's created by all that continues to come from the district, from TEA, concerning what it means for school to reopen. You know, we know that the high impact of COVID-19 on communities of color is not driving this. It is not being considered the way that it should be. We're talking about communities that have seen an immense economic impact and a loss of life. And we're talking about districts that need authentic authority and need to take ownership of that to determine what is best for everyone in school communities. We're asking that families, staff, workers, everyone who is part of this really be prioritized as the ones determining the course for this reopening in conjunction with the direction given by the health officials and the data that we have on what is happening in these communities. You know, we have families that need to be able to be on campus for many reasons. We have teachers and workers who are electing that option. We also have families who need to stay remote and have requested that. And we need those options to be guaranteed and not pulled back or offered in one way and changed in another way with incredible time pressures to adapt, to get information. And we know that we're also struggling to keep up with all that is coming our way. What we're saying and what we're asking for is for the health and safety of our communities, especially communities of color, to be prioritized and to be consistent. We need, this is a time of incredible instability and on many fronts for everyone involved in this pandemic. And we need consistency, we need stability, and we need to stand up and say to TEA and to the district that this is the time to bring forth the care and take the time to make the decisions that will result in a safe and just return to school.